So for people who want to become software engineer, I have amazing news for those that are listening, and it's that you don't need a degree, and I'll elaborate on why. Because software engineering is a trade, not a knowledge work. So that's the beautiful thing, is that anyone can learn how to do it. And if you learn how to do it really well, you'll get a job.
I'm gonna start this episode with this quote, and you tell me what you think about Taylor. You don't get confident by standing in front of the mirror and shooting positive affirmation. You gain confident by stacking wins day after days. So what do you think about that?
That's unique. You don't gain confidence just by looking at the mirror. I think it tells me something more, to be able to take action on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So it's good to affirm yourself as well and learn, but taking action is key. It's extremely important. Just in any endeavor you may have.
Oh yeah, that's really great. It's a quote that I saw, I've been reading somewhere, and I was like, this is really great. Why? So many people just think you can stand in front of a mirror, start shouting positive affirmation like, I'm great, I'm good, I'm wonderful. And then they think like that is the only thing that's going to make you gain confidence. Otherwise, that is not really the case. It's about doing work every single day. And when you feel that I have accomplished something, that's built confidence in you. So, how have you been, Taylor?
Good. It's been a long week, but I think it's overall it's been good. I'm looking forward to the conversation we have today with a very special guest that we're bringing on. We're extremely knowledgeable.
I'm just here. I'm just here for the fun.
So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's been a good week so far. A good achievement week.
So what did you do this week?
Yeah, this week from my regular engineering job, I've been able to make progress within that. I'm working on just some real estate deals that I'm trying to close on pretty within the next week or so. Been just analyzing some of those deals. Hopefully by next week I'll be able to close them out.
What kind of property are you looking at?
As of right now, there's a property here in Dallas, as well as Houston. Various different markets, so we're just looking into those properties and then just looking on to close those deals. So that's the main task I've had this week.
All right,
that's exciting.
Hey everybody, I hope you're doing great today. Welcome back to the Fortunate Mindset podcast. Here we have a really special guest. I can't really explain to you how thrilled and excited I am to introduce this really great, amazing person. Man, he is somebody that has a head. When I'm talking about head, it's not just head, it's brain, man. He's from software engineer, he's a businessman, he is an entrepreneur. Bro, I mean, I'm like looking forward to learn more. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I'm not going to introduce him. Taylor, can you introduce Fred?
For sure. It's an honor for me. Yeah. So this guest is a very special guest of mine. I studied with him as well. Took some time to be able to whenever I was still in college. Right off the bat, I noticed that he's very extremely motivated and ambitious. So I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation we're gonna have here today. Let's introduce to the room Verde.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Oh man,
for sure.
Excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Honor to have you here on the podcast. So definitely looking forward to the conversation we're gonna be able to have here.
I mean,
and just be able for you to share some of the breadth of knowledge that you have with us and your experiences. Definitely looking forward to it.
Sure. I mean, when Taylor told me like, Toronto, we're gonna have Verde, and I was like, who's Verde? He told me it's my friend. We, went out to college together.
That's right.
And all this stuff.
Right.
I was like, man, okay, just keep it there. I will ask him myself.
Okay.
So, Verde, can you talk a little bit about yourself? Who are you? I know I've said you are an entrepreneur. You are a software engineer. You do business by the side. So, but what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah. So this guest is a very special guest of mine. We I studied with him as well. Took some time to be able to whenever I was still in college. Right off the bat, I noticed that he's very extremely motivated and ambitious. So I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation we're gonna be able to have here today.
So, but tell a bit of your background.
Sure. So my background is, like you mentioned, I'm a software engineer.
Yeah.
I've been dabbling in tech since I was really young, since I was 12. So I got into it very young. I was fortunate to discover what I love to do, and I stuck with it since. And so that's what I studied in college. I graduated. I left college actually to start a company doing startup and then writing software. Did that for 3 years and went back to the job market, working in various startup scene. I guess there's a trend, right? Like I've always shown an interest between mixing software and technology with business, and so that's kind of where my career has trended and followed, and that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I hope to do until I leave this earth, to be honest.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, it's a question that just comes in my mind. Starting from a place where you've been in tech since 12,
right,
and start doing your own businesses and all that kind of stuff. So what satisfaction that did you get from doing that until today?
Well, the way that I discovered it was actually interesting. Growing up, I was not into computers at all. I grew up in France, and growing up in France, we used to always play outside with our friends. That was kind of the life. But one summer, I guess I got into trouble. I didn't do what I should have in school, and I got grounded. My mom said, you can't leave the entire summer.
Wow.
Then the whole summer I couldn't leave the house. That was crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's this computer here. Let me see if there's something interesting happening there.
Yeah.
Because there was one of my friends who we used to play outside with all the time. He disappeared on us.
Oh, yeah.
And he was hooked on this online game thing.
Oh,
and we used to make fun of him, like, dude, like, come outside, come play with us. But it's like, nah, this internet, this is where it's at.
Wow.
And so being grounded, I was like, oh, maybe I can play with him and we can sync online. And so that's kind of how I got into computers in the beginning. And for me, what was really interesting and maybe what I fell in love with was the fact that when working on computers, you could create something out of nothing. You could go from a blank page to having a working piece of software that other people are using and deriving value from. And so the process of creation, I guess, right, from nothing to something is fascinating to me. And so that's kind of what got me hooked. And what I try to pursue all the time is how can I create something that brings value to other people?
There's a notion that I heard. Is it true? Tell me if this is true. That hackers, programmers, coders all stem from maybe a basement. You know, you're in a basement over here coding and coding away. Is it true that most programmers just start, focused in an area like that?
I mean, so first of all, I didn't have a basement in our apartment. I lived on the 4th floor.
Okay,
so that's not the case. But the idea that most are like maybe sheltered into a cave in the world, I would say that's true because when you're like locked in on something, the way that I try to describe software engineering or really any kind of computer work is it's very mental. And so you're building all these mental models and you're navigating these mental models and that requires a certain level of intensity and focus. And so for that, you would prefer, to be in an environment where there's not a lot of distractions around you and you can kind of just tune out the world and be just your program and your task and trying to get it done.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So, Verde, how did you manage that passion, right? If I can say it that way. That passion, that work with your own and personal life as a husband.
Ooh. What do you mean? Elaborate on the question.
So what I mean is you have to be creating code, right? You have to create software, programs and other stuff, managing your own businesses. But you also have the darling by the side. I want to be like, I want to have time with my husband.
Right.
I want to go out with my husband.
So a little bit more, because since Verde does also have a family. So how do you manage the family aspect
with
your business as well as your work time and everything?
So that's a great question. The short answer is it's hard. It's not easy. During the first 2 years of my marriage, I failed at this pretty bad. one of my greatest strengths and weaknesses is my ability to focus. Like I can really focus on something and zone everything else.
Yeah, sure.
Which is a great strength. But then by consequence, I can tune people out or make people feel invisible because I'm so focused on the thing, right? And so for the first 2 years of my marriage, that was a struggle. Because my wife would be like, "Hey, Verde, I'm here, you know, like I want to spend time or whatever." But then I was so locked in. And it was really through a lot of maybe tension and conflict that we sort of came to a working solution. And it's not perfect, but essentially the way that I try to manage is I have to wake up really early. And I dedicate, this is how I try to partition my time. So early in the morning from about 5 to 9 or 10, these are my hours. This is what I try to spend my most focused time on, working on my business or either trying to create new things or answering queries or whatever. Like that's when I'm working on my business. Then maybe from 9, 10 to 4, 5, that's like my work time. This is when I'm at work and I'm doing my work stuff. And then I try to shut it down by 5:30. I don't always do this because it's easy to get locked in, like, oh, let me do this one more thing, do this one more task. And
I definitely understand that too.
Until 6:30, like, oh, like, let me do this last thing. You're there at 9. So you have to catch yourself. But essentially, I try to cut it off at 5:30 and then spend time with the fam.
That definitely happened to me yesterday, actually.
Oh, really?
I mean, normally I finish like at 5:30, but I found myself pushing it all the way till 7:30 based off just trying to accomplish a certain project. You always want to add more to it, just fix it up, because you know that you'll get back to it Monday. But let me just fix this real quick.
Let me make more progress.
Let me make more progress. Let me just progress more, and then it takes time. That's just the engineering brain.
I get it. I mean, coming from that base whereby you say like I have to do more, I have to make this work. Why would you define a time whereby, I mean, with certain people, right, when they be like, no, it's my work, if I do everything today, what would I do tomorrow? So how would you get to where you say I want to do more, but you feel like if I do more today, would I have work to do tomorrow? So how can you manage or balance that kind of mindset when you get yourself to a certain battle into your mind?
Right. Well, my question would be, well, why are you concerned about not having work tomorrow? If you're working on the right thing, there should be some sort of longer term view to the project that you're working on, right? Like this is not a 1 or 2 or 3 day thing. Like this should be a 3, 6, 1 year thing. And if that's true, then there's plenty of work to do. That you can do tomorrow, and you can do tomorrow, and then the next day, next week. And if there's the concern that, well, what if you get it done? Well, isn't that a good thing, right? That if you've set yourself a goal to do this thing in 3 months, and you've partitioned 3 months of your life to this, but you get it done in 2 months, you've accelerated the timeline. You know, people always say time is money, but it's not always translated to how is time money. The thing is, if you a lot of time, if you can compress the timeline to arriving at a certain point, you accelerate the rate at which you can make money. So let me give you an example.
Go ahead.
This is pretty common in startup world, where they will try to build what's called like an MVP. They're like, okay, let's put an MVP together and let's bring that to market, and then we'll try to sell that and grow from there. Right? So they try to make a very minimal basic version, put that in the market, and then continue to tweak and evolve the product over time. Now the thing is, if you can take your MVP timeline, right, and you're looking at a 3 months roadmap, but you can cut that down to 1.5 months, that means in 6 weeks you're in market selling. And if you're in market selling in 6 weeks, by week 9 or week 10, you should be having at least 1 or 2 or 3 customers. And so you see, like, the same, you can take the exact same person, right, the exact same idea, and you give one person a mindset of compressing time, and the other person not. And at the end of 3 months, you'll have one person who's still building on an MVP, and you'll have the other person, like, they're already on their 5th customer, they're about to get to their 7th. Right? You see, like, the difference. And so if you take that just in 3 months and you play that out over 5 years, like, who's really gonna get reach their goals fastest
Yeah.
in life and really advance.
Yeah.
It's the person who's always thinking about like speed, like,
Yeah.
okay, how can I get this done faster? How can I do this in less time? How can I compress this? You know, and always just trying to squeeze in time so that you can continue to make progress.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the idea of optimizing as well. That's what a lot of major companies work on, optimizing the industry or the specific project you have, the specific task, so that it can be more efficient.
Okay.
And how one of the ways you can be more efficient is with time as well.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely optimizing is something that's very important. Now in very different facets of the
That's
areas.
amazing. That's really fascinating. Talking about speed, right? We're living in the time where everybody want everything to be fast,
Right.
right? So for instance, let's say you are on internet, on Google, trying to search for something, right? You just googling there, and then your internet start buzzing, like stuff taking too long
Everybody
to
hates
give
that.
you like so, and then you be like, oh gosh, I really want this to go really,
Right.
fast. So how do you manage the time where you coding but it's not really giving you what you are expecting from it? So how do you manage that stress, that pressure, like that feeling that
The
you want even
frustration.
So how does it go?
Debugging is one of the most frustrating parts, and least fun, at least,
Okay.
in working in software, because you have a problem and you're trying to figure out why it's not working, and that's actually the bulk of your job.
Yeah.
Funny enough, maybe 20 or 30% of your value as an engineer is creating new things,
Yeah.
but at least 70% of your value is being able to understand why some things are not working and then fixing them,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Which is why AI will never replace engineers, but that's a
Never.
side note.
I support that.
That's a total side note.
Yeah.
But you just deal with it, right? Like, I mean, it's frustrating, it's hard, you persevere.
Yeah.
You have to have systems. For me, what I do is, if I'm stuck on something for too long that I can't make progress, I just walk away from it. Typically a 20-minute walk, and you come back, you have fresh ideas.
Okay.
And you might be able to spot something that you otherwise couldn't before, because you have
Okay.
you're biased because you've been looking at it for too long, right? So giving it time helps you get a fresh perspective.
Okay. Interesting. Well, let's talk about your progress and definitely how you progressed through your education and how you became a software engineer, because I know we may have some audience that are maybe interested in that field,
Right.
want a different perspective. I remember, if I can tell a quick story, the first time we really met, it was in speech class at TCC.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember
Okay.
We were in the same class?
we were in the same class.
Okay.
I remember a specific event where we were supposed to give an impromptu speech. This is how he stood out to me.
Okay.
You know what an impromptu speech is? They give you a quick subject within just a few minutes, and then you have to just elaborate and speak on it real quick.
Definitely.
So it was impromptu, and he was outstanding in his speech.
Oh no.
He stood out. I was amazed on what he was speaking on. And
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
I was like,
what was this?
right after?
I don't remember.
I mean, it was a long time ago, but I just remember your speech stood out to me.
Okay.
And then right after your speech, I came after you. I said, "Hey, that was a good speech, man. What's your name? What's your we start speaking from there and
Right.
stayed in contact. From ever since then, I've been trying to follow here what he's doing, and
Okay.
he's definitely motivating.
Oh,
Yeah, so speak a little bit about your journey and your education and background a little bit more. What people can do to try to get to become a software engineer.
So for people who want to become software engineer, I have amazing news for those that are listening, and it's that you don't need a degree, and I'll elaborate on why. Because software engineering is a trade, not a knowledge work.
Oh,
That's key, right? It's not like your type of engineering whereby you have to be certified to be a mechanical engineer, and it's not like medicine where again it's derived on what you know.
okay.
Right? Software engineering, I guess, or coding or programming is really a knowing with your hands. It's about knowing how to do the work. Like, do you know how to program? Do you know how to build this thing? Do you know how to create an application? And if you know how to create an application, then you will get work.
Oh, okay.
Right? because on the flip side, there's a lot of people who maybe have the degree, right, but they don't know how to do the work. And so those people, well, they don't succeed.
Okay.
But there's, on the flip side, there's many people who know how to do the work, but who don't have the degree who succeed.
Okay.
And many people transition in and out of the industry.
Okay.
So that's the beautiful thing, is that anyone can learn how to do it.
Okay.
And if you learn how to do it really well, you'll get a job. Like the example I love to give when I'm mentoring people is, who would you rather have cut your hair? The person who has been reading about it for 7 years, or the one who has been cutting hair for 7 years?
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right.
The person has been cutting for 7 years.
That's right.
But he's never read a book on barbering. Are you okay with that?
He has experience. Hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of a principle that's true about software engineering.
Yeah.
And so, so that's good news.
Yeah, sure.
But on the flip side, it's also really hard to learn. The learning curve is really, really steep in the beginning. A lot of people end up quitting.
Okay.
Because when you're learning how to program, what you're really learning is you're learning how to think, like how a computer function, and give it instruction in a way that it can execute them. And that's extremely challenging to do, to be able to take your thought process as, okay, I want, when I click this button, money goes out.
Okay.
To take your thought process and translate it into something a computer can take instructions and execute on. That's the hardest thing to learn.
Yeah.
And so the learning curve is really, really steep in the beginning. A lot of people can't overcome that wall. But then once you get over that wall, it gets easier from there. So it's not like it gets increasingly harder to learn as you go on. It's actually really hard in the beginning, but then there's a certain hump. And once you get over that hump, then it's all downhill from there. So
Fascinating.
So that's what it takes, a lot of perseverance and dedication, almost obsession, to get through that initial learning curve, which is why I tell a lot of people, don't try to learn programming if you're in it for the money. Because the money will not motivate you through that wall.
A lot of people do pursue it for money.
Yeah.
Right.
You see people that are working and getting $200,000 a year plus.
Definitely.
They want to pursue that.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
But then they say, coding, should I just, they pursue it just for the money, but they don't really have the passion and the love.
Right. And I'm not saying that it's required. That's pretty shallow. Like, I don't care why you do a job, to be honest. But my warning or my cautionary tale is people who are motivated just for the money, right? They tend to get washed out because it's the learning curve is really steep. And so people who are in it for the money are like, maybe there's better ways to make money. Like, this is too much. So you need something to push you through that initial difficulty. And usually passion or interests is a stronger motivation than financial gains. So that's why I say don't try, because that's not a strong enough motivation to overcome the wall.
That's really, really great and amazing. I feel like I'm saying amazing a lot of time.
I've not noticed.
So this just came into my mind. You said, like, if money is your only motivation, you just tend to be giving up.
Right.
But I remember I've seen a lot of ads on different platforms about software. Everybody just starts with money. Software is a really growing industry where you're gonna make a lot of money and all of those blah blah blah. So if now the person is like, okay, I'm so committed to this. Why? Because I've seen Taylor making, for instance, 150 a year,
right?
Verde making 200 a year. Then Jonathan, let me go to software engineering, or let's go to mechanical engineer. So is it a good thing? Because I've seen Verde and Taylor being engineer and making good money for me to go to, or I should have a strong motivation by myself, really going to pursue that career?
Well, I would say early on, even though I loved the technology, I knew there was great money in it. Right. Like, so I knew that it could afford me a quality of life that I wanted. And I don't think that it's wrong
Yeah.
for someone to desire a good life and seek means to attain that good life, right?
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
I mean, that's what we're all doing every
sure.
day. But rather, so it's fine for someone to be attracted by maybe the job prospect or the financial prospects of something, and then to look into that matter.
Yeah.
Because you may find that while the money is incredible, you may hate the work.
Okay.
And if you hate the work,
true.
then your money is meaningless.
That's
It truly is.
sure. Sure.
I know I've met some people, they've been accountant for like 13 years. They're miserable.
No
They-
way.
They are not happy.
Same thing with engineers as well that I
They
speak
make a stupid amount of money, but they're unhappy, right? So because they wake up every Monday doing something they hate.
They hate.
So like you should apply some wisdom to this. Like money comes and go, but your time, it goes and never comes back.
That's true.
So
That's right.
so if you're gonna make money, there's lots of ways to make great money. Software engineering is not the only field you can make 200K. It is one of the only few where you can make 200K with no degree, right? Like that's true. But there's some other options, and so you should look at all the options, and you should decide which one fits best with my abilities and my interests, and go for that. Because then at least here, not only you'll last, you'll become more successful, you'll be better at it, and you'll be less miserable. And that's key. So that's how I think about it.
Correct me if I get it wrong. Do you feel like, I mean, Taylor, you can answer to this too. Do you feel like somebody has to go in the field or the program if they love it because they love to do it because it's their passion? Or I can just wake up in the morning and say, okay, let me be an engineer, or okay, let me be a physician, for instance.
Right.
So, or do you get my question right?
Right.
Like, does it have to come from passion, from motivation, or for just, because you say you may start getting a lot of money, but you don't love what you do.
Right. You don't have to love it, but you can't hate it. So
if you don't love something, it means you hate it. If you don't hate something,
not necessarily.
neutral about something.
Not necessarily. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you can be like,
Say more about it.
like, okay, I don't know that I've met a lot of people like this. Actually, I do. I know someone who's like that, where they didn't start off wanting to be a software engineer, but they worked in the tech industry, and they just through various roles and upskilling, whatever, they ended up in this position. And then it's kind of something like, well, they like the job, because it challenges them.
Yeah.
It helps them to think. They learn how to solve problems, things of that nature. But they don't hate it. That's the key. If you hate it, you'll be absolutely miserable.
Yeah,
So
sure.
she's more like, I like this. This is great. Will I do this until I'm 65? Maybe not. Maybe one day I'll switch industries.
Okay.
But for now, I'm happy where I'm at. That's an okay place to be at.
Okay.
And then on the flip side of that, I've personally have friends that started off, they got an engineering degree, and then they they jumped into the engineering industry. They started working, and then from there, after a few months, they noticed that this isn't for them. It's just not what they want.
Okay.
And then they found their passion differently.
Okay.
They jumped into real estate
Right.
or other things, and then they're doing that full time now, even though they still have their engineering degree.
There's a lot of wasted time.
There's
in that
different right.
transition.
There's different aspects of jumping into what you really love, what's passionate about you. So how can you mention jumping into becoming a software engineer as without a degree? I'm pretty sure that's interesting to a lot of people.
Sure.
Because
Definitely.
Because getting the degree is already expensive.
Right.
Stress of doing homework, all this stuff.
Man.
It's interesting to people.
Man.
And it sounds good.
Yeah.
But how can people go about it?
Wow. The answer is simple, but most people don't like that answer.
Okay.
It takes, first of all, you have to know yourself. How self-disciplined are you, and how motivated are you?
Oh yeah.
You can self-teach, right? Most of what I know about software today, I didn't learn from going to university.
Okay.
I didn't learn much from university, to be honest. It kind of was a waste of my time a little bit.
No way.
It was great for the people, but not for what they taught me. Maybe I learned some things in my data structure class.
Yeah.
But the bulk of what I use every day, I didn't learn in school, right? I learned outside of school. So it's predicated really on your personal ability to focus and stay consistent. If you know that you're very focused, very disciplined, and you're like, if I set my mind on something, I'm going to go after it, then 100% you can self-teach.
Yeah.
You can find courses online, read the courses, apply the material, rinse and repeat for eternity. And you'll learn anything that you can learn in the universe. You know, anything is on YouTube nowadays. You can learn how to cut a heart open. There is open heart surgery tutorials on YouTube today. Right? Like you can learn anything online. It's just how motivated are you to pursue and stick through that. A lot of people aren't. They'll start, but then they'll get distracted or they'll lose motivation. So that's kind of where an issue can be. If that's you, then for someone like you, you do need the structure and kind of the accountability that getting a formal education provides. There's a lot of, and formal education can be either a university degree or it can be a boot camp or things of that nature. But if you're one of those person, you need that system around you. Like, you know, I can't push myself through it, then yeah, that route is better for you. But if you know you can push yourself through it, then yeah, you can learn this stuff for free on the internet.
Well, follow-up question to that. You can learn it. You can, like you mentioned, you can learn to cut open heart surgery and do this stuff. But how do you then get into the industry? Because once you get face to face with the industry, they require you to have a certain degree, all this experience and things. How do you then get past that barrier of getting into the industry and getting money and working?
I would say by proving skills. So if you're coming, first of all, any person trying to get their first job, it's always hard, right? Because they want everyone to have 3 to 5 years of experience. That's kind of how it goes. That was, and that can hinder a lot of people, and they'll struggle to get their foot in the door. So this is what you do. You kind of have to take unconventional means to be able to get in, and you have to prove skills. So there's two ways you can either get a way in or prove skills. Is number one is you network internally. So don't go on Indeed. All right, if you're somebody who has taught himself programming, and you feel as though you've reached a level where you're like, okay, I'm ready to work. Don't go on Indeed and start sending resumes. Nobody's gonna call you back. Right, because they're not looking for you. They're looking for 3 to 5. So that channel is like, that door is closed. So you need to look at other means of getting in. And one of those ways is network with the company. So go on Indeed, find the job posting, right? Find the company, and then reverse engineer the people who work there and look them up. Go on LinkedIn, look up all the, I don't know, maybe engineers who are at that company, send all of them a LinkedIn message. Hey, I see that you work at YouTube. You know, I'd love to work there someday. Like, could you share 15 minutes to tell me about your experience working there? Things of that nature. You talk to that person, and then after that conversation, you ask if they can refer your resume in. That, at the very least, you will get seen. If you send your resume just on Indeed, you'll get filtered out by the system. They have software that like, if years less than, send to the trash.
That's true.
Nobody even sees the resume. So at least by going through like a networking driven approach and talking to people, and someone in the company refer you in, then your resume might get seen. And then another way is to prove skills. And this one is more involved, more difficult, but the reward is greater. And the one, there's different ways to go about it, but there's one way that I've seen is, you find the companies that the company you want to work for, and you try to figure out what is a piece of concept that this company could benefit for, or its people could benefit from. And then you create that piece of concept and you send it to the people in the company. So let me give you an example. Say that you're trying to break into design, and I was just talking to someone this morning about this. You're trying to break into design, you have no experience. What do you do? So say you find McDonald's, and McDonald's, they have a mobile app today, right? And you make a proof of concept. You're like, okay, what if McDonald's had their own delivery drivers on their own app instead of relying on DoorDash? So, and then you go and you design like 2-3 screens of like a McDonald's delivery app, something like that, and you put that together, and then you send it to all the people inside McDonald's who might care about this. You send it to the head of design, you send it to the VP of design, you send it to the manager of the mobile apps team, you send it to these 7 designers. You try to send it to everyone you can find who's relevant on the company.
Okay.
And you send the emails like, hey guys, I love McDonald's and I'd love to work there as a designer.
Yeah.
So I put together this little proof of concept of what a Mac delivery app could look like.
Okay.
What this does to the people on the receiving end is that number one, it proves initiative.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it shows that you're somebody who's self-motivated, self-directed, and that you're able to see things through. It proves that you're innovative, that you think outside the box, that you have ideas. And if the work in and of itself is good, it proves that you have skills.
Definitely.
And so if the head of design person at McDonald's gets that email, they look at that proof of concept and they like it, they will call you back. Okay. Even if they would have never looked at your resume, right? They may have seen your resume and thought, man, this guy has 3 months of experience. He's trash, right? But if you show them the work, they may be like, wow, like this is beautiful. Like I'm impressed by this work.
Sure.
This person is skilled. We need to get them in here. And so these are the 2 ways you can really break into the industry if you're not someone like most people and you're starting from zero and you need to get that first foot in. You either prove skills or you network or you get lucky, because that's always not sure. You can get lucky.
Yeah, sure.
That plays a factor in it too.
Yeah, there's a luck factor in it. But
all right. So we want to take this moment to thank you for really being with us until now. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe and follow in different platforms. Either you're listening from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or anywhere, or Google Podcasts. And if it's on YouTube, please subscribe so that we can also be seen and viewed by so many people that want to listen to this and really study all the great things that we're sharing here. We say in this channel, we really talk about all the challenges that youth are going through, either it's in life, relationship, business. And here, as you can hear, we're talking about how you can start from not having a degree to getting a job as a software engineer. So please support us. And for everybody who's already a subscriber, we thank you for being with us. So let's go back to the conversation.
Sure.
Taylor, I thought you have something to say from everything that he has said.
Yeah, well, very, very good points that you brought up. But I want to kind of switch the subject around a little bit, because I know you also mentor in financing, and we on the phone a few days ago, you spoke to me about, I'd like for you to elaborate the idea you mentioned to me about Robert Kiyosaki's 4 quadrants, and just speak a little bit more to that, to how you manage finances and how people can really appropriately manage their finances.
I mean, to add up to what he has said, bro, managing finance is so hard.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people don't really get it. People might have jobs, work, and all this stuff, making money, but they're not able to manage it or even to save that money. So from the question that Taylor have asked, I'm really also want to know more about it. Like,
sure.
How can you manage your finances?
So finances is something I've always been very interested in, because from a young age, I knew that I wanted to become a millionaire eventually.
Oh yeah.
Like from a very young age, like I just knew, I was like, this life of struggling that I was born in, I'm not dying in this. I swear I will fight to the tooth, or I will die trying.
Oh yeah.
And so I always had this long-term view that, okay, in the future, I will have loads and loads of monies, and I will need to manage and grow that money.
Yeah.
So I've always had an interest in learning about how finances works and things of that nature. In regards to the Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and how it impacted me, I think that was a very big turning point. I had heard about that book before, but I had never read it. And when I first read it, it was like something shifted in my perspective. It was a perspective shifting book. There's only a couple that do that in your life.
Yeah.
That was one of those for me. And what really blew my mind was how he broke down the concept of cash flow and assets and liabilities.
Okay.
And in truth, people are very liberal with what they label as an asset, right? They're like, well, this has intrinsic worth, so it's an asset. But his definition of an asset was not that. It was like, it's not an asset if it has intrinsic worth, because everything is worth something.
Yeah.
it's an asset if it's cash flow producing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's not, then it's a
liability.
liability.
Yeah, it becomes a liability.
And so it's like, oh, wow. So that really shifted how I viewed things in money and how to manage money.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big ideas
Yeah.
that he gives in his books is your level of wealth is predicated on how long you can go without working.
Okay. Okay.
If you can go 3 months without working, that's your level of wealth. If you can go 6, that's your level. If you can stop working tomorrow and life will be fine,
yeah.
then you've essentially achieved financial freedom. Like
Okay.
your life is now not tied into your ability to earn a paycheck every month.
Okay.
And he says the way that you get there is by accruing assets that produce cash flow. So he breaks it down like this. He was like, you get cash flow coming in, right? So you get money, and you take that money and you put that money toward assets that can produce cash, more money.
Yeah.
And then so you get 5,000 this month. You put all that 5,000 toward assets. Next month you get 5,100.
Okay.
Then you take that 5,100, you put that towards more assets. The next month you get 5,200, and you continue taking your cash into assets that produce more cash, so that you feed that loop until you reach a point where the assets produce enough cash where you don't need to get a paycheck anymore. And when he explained it like that, and I saw that from the book, I changed how I tracked my money. He also said something key was, if it's not tracked, it's not managed. If you're not tracking anything, you're not managing it. So you have to be tracking the stuff.
Okay.
If you're not tracking your time, you're not managing it. If you're not tracking the work your employees are doing, you're not managing it. Like you have to track in order to have the accountability to be able to manage it effectively.
Yeah.
So once I saw that, this is what I did. I created an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
And in the middle, and this is how it was structured. So in the top, you have money coming in.
Yeah.
Then you have underneath that, you have all of the expenses that take away from the money.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you have what's going towards the assets.
Okay.
Right. And then you have, I have a percentage score.
Okay.
Of like efficiency, essentially. And that represents from all the money that came in at the top, what percentage of it ended up going towards the assets bucket. And the first month I did that, I was like 1 or 2% or something. It was ridiculous, right? Like, I wasn't tracking my money effectively. And so from the moment I created that monthly sheet, and I was like, okay, next month, and I started doing that monthly. I started, what that helped me do is essentially shift where my money was going. Instead of my money going towards useless things or wasteful things or liabilities, it started shifting more and more to go towards my assets, where I was able to start actually growing my net worth and making positive movement in my net worth. And that was key for me because when I started this tracking journey, I think it was maybe March of 2019, I was like, all in all, I was worth negative $17,000.
Oh yeah.
Because I had like maybe a car, and then I had like a mountain student debts and like credit card debt and all that stuff. And by just setting up that system and helping me see where my money should go, from like a year after that, I was like positive 17.
Okay.
So I made 40 grand's worth of progress just by having the right system to see where my money was going and how to track that better.
Oh yeah.
And so that was very, very key. And that's what I give as advice, I guess, to people for what it's worth, is you have to have a system where you track this at a bird's eye view monthly. And number 2, you have to separate out your bank accounts.
Okay.
One of the biggest weaknesses, I guess, I had as a person managing money is that I would make a plan and then I would not abide to the plan.
Oh,
I'd have a budget. Okay, this month my budget, I'm only spending $400 on fast food.
Okay.
Right. And then
that's much for fast food.
That's a lot of fast food.
That's a lot of fast food.
It sounds like a lot, but if you break it down, it's really like $100 a week.
Still a lot.
And if you
fast food,
if you take that 100 and you account at least one date, that's at least $40, right? And like,
put it in that perspective.
It's not that horrible, but
go
my
ahead.
my actual budget was more like 200 or 250. But say you come up with a number.
Sure.
This month I'm only going to spend 500 on shopping for stuff.
Yeah.
And then the month goes by, and then you get at the end of the month, you spent like 800-900.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, well, oh no, I guess next month I'll try this spend 500, but you always kind of fall short of that. And so that was frustrating for me. I kept missing my budgeting targets.
Yeah.
And I realized I was going about it wrong. I was going about it with the assumption that I was strong.
Oh.
Once I changed my mindset to build around the assumption that I'm weak, that's when things got better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the assumption was like, okay, I'm weak. I lack the discipline to not spend money if I have access to it. So then let me design my money in such a way that I don't have access to it easily.
Okay.
Because I know if I have easy access, I'll be spending it.
Sure.
So that's what I did. And I created 3 bank accounts. Now me and my wife, we have a combined 6.
Okay.
It's a very elaborate system. But essentially my paycheck goes into one bank account. I don't have that debit card.
Yeah.
I don't carry it on me. I have a savings account, but it's at another bank. It's not at the same bank, because if it's at the same bank, then it's easy to transfer money into your checking. Like, let me just, I know I'm going out with your boys. Let me just swipe a little 30 from my savings. Let me swipe a little.
Yeah.
So my savings is at another bank, so it's not easily transferred.
Yeah.
And then I have a third bank account where that's the card that I have on my wallet on me at all times.
Okay.
And every week I send myself $300 into that card. So now my spending is capped to what's in this card.
Okay.
The one that's in my wallet. That has 300. Every Friday, 300 hits this card.
Okay.
And once that 300 is gone, it's gone. I'm not spending any more money.
Okay.
And so now by separating out my money
That's great.
in like different bank accounts, I've limited my self-sabotage, right? Because I would sabotage myself.
Yeah, sure.
But now if I burn the 300, it's gone.
Okay.
And the damage is not contained to what can happen here, rather than like messing up my entire monthly income and saving targets and all that stuff. And that made a huge difference to my financial success. So I tried to pass on the system, like, hey, have separate bank accounts. Have a daily bank account. That's the card you have in your wallet.
Yeah.
Have a bank account for your bills. That's where your paycheck goes, and that's where your bills are paid out of.
Okay.
You don't carry that debit card on you. And have your savings account in a separate bank so that you don't easily transfer your money when you conveniently need it. And if you just do that, that'll already take you a long way to make you better.
Yeah, let me add something here. So there's a concept as well that I've learned just from reading it as well. Dave Ramsey teaches on having an emergency fund to be able to accommodate for the expenses that you have that you may have coming towards just to be able to manage more of the funds that you have. Yeah. So what do you think about that? How can you incorporate a saving account as well as just being able to have an emergency fund available? Because I think a lot of people can abide by the principles you're mentioning, but then once an emergency comes, say for example a death to a family, a car emergency, something major happens, sure. And then they have to take money out, and then that plan that they were abiding by it falls apart. Right. So how can people really stick to that and have an emergency fund and help that out?
Well, that's kind of what your savings account that's in a separate account. Your savings account that's at a separate bank can help serve as. So my long-term, I don't have a long-term cash savings. Okay. If I'm trying to go long-term, I just put it in an S&P or something. Like if that's money I don't care about. But if it's money that I want,
money that you don't care about,
like
who doesn't care about money?
No, it's more so like money that I don't necessarily want to have access to. Okay. The way I think about it is, I never want to have more than $10,000 in cash ever. Okay. Like that's my upper limit. My lower limit, it varies through stages of life. Now my lower limit is more like 5K because then I'm married, kids and all. Like you want to have some cash on hand. Before that, when I was single, I would try to make sure I have at least 1,000 and at most 5. Okay. So that was like the cash that I had in the savings account at most. Anything beyond that, I would just send it in a investment account or something. Okay. So what you mentioned, the emergency, this is where the emergency would be pulled, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If I had a blow tire, for example, and I had to spend 800 at the dealership,
Yeah.
I would take it out of that 5,000 I have.
Yeah.
Now it's back to 4,200.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I'll just replenish it in the following months until it's back at 5,000.
Okay.
And then once it's at 5,000, then the overflow will go to the investment account, things of that nature. So
Okay.
you have, that's what that cash balance is for those kind of emergencies that can come up.
That's so great, because it brings me to the idea of something I heard somewhere. Like, it's not people don't have a saving problem. People have a spending problem. Because you say that it's the way you manage how your money goes out.
Yes.
So
100%.
now you've explained how to have different bank accounts. You told us about how you can not spend more than 300. That's the number we have given. So, but how can somebody do that? You told us like, this is now, you can take 300 from here. You can take let's say for instance somebody's making 5,000 a month, right? So how a person can manage like this 5,000, this is the amount that I'm gonna, let's put it in percentages.
Okay.
Now this is what I'm going to use for my expenses. This is what I'm gonna use for my saving or for my investment or whatever.
I mean, it's simple. So you get paid. The first thing you do is you save 10%.
Okay.
People make the mistake. Robert says that in the book.
He does, yeah.
He says,
Yeah.
I don't pay nobody else first. I pay myself first, and then I pay the rest of the world.
Okay.
Because if you pay the rest of the world first, you'll always end up paying yourself less.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So what people will do is they'll get money, they'll spend on all their bills, all this stuff. What's left over is what they save. It's like, no. When you get the money, the first thing you do is you set aside your savings, and then you play with the rest.
Okay.
So you get your 5,000, you set aside 10% off the bat into your savings account. From that point, you then look at your expenses, like your rent, bills, all that stuff, and you tally it up. That's not something you necessarily control. It's just whatever it is that your bills are, that's what they are. And you'll spend that money there, and then you allocate. I typically aim for about 10% of like free spending money.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what would go into my debit card. And this is money that I can spend like guilt free. Like I can spend that money how I want. Like I don't have to feel bad about how I'm spending it. Like, cause this is for me. And so this is where I'll go eat out. I'll put gas in my car with this. If I'm shopping on Amazon, that's the card I'm using,
Yeah.
So for those petty transactions, and you set aside a percentage of your income, 10 to 15%, should be good enough. And so if you've paid your bills and you have grocery money set aside, and you've saved your money, and then you have this free spending money, you've covered all the bases. Like, what else do you need, right?
Well, in regards to that, there's something that we have to add as well, at least for a lot of us Christians or just the Christian audience.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned 10%. 10% is
the
tithe money that should be paid to God.
Right.
So you think that people should look at it differently in terms of how much they should allocate to a certain fund or a certain account in regards to that, or just other expenses that they may have?
I think so. For me, I tithe, so I'll give my 10% and then I'll save 10%.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how it works. If you're not maybe you're not a believer, right?
Yeah.
Then you would save 10%, and then that other 10% you can either put that in savings or you can invest it.
I mean,
my brother he invests his. So
okay. I can have an answer to that too. There's in this book, The Richest Men of Babylon, they say,
It's a good book, by the way.
yeah, when you have your 100% money, let's say it's 5,000, right? So at least accept like 10% for the tithe. But if you're not a believer, you can use that money for charity, for example. You can just take the money, take it away. I mean, give it away. It's not your money. Then take 10%. put it on your passive income, like something where you can invest and you don't work in that thing.
Right.
And then take 10% for your active income. Then make sure that your expenses are just meeting 70% of that money.
Right.
But then so many people will be like, maybe 70% is not that much to like cover all my bills, like all the stuff. So make sure that you can only use 70%.
Right.
I mean, so what's your thoughts about that? That's I read in the book, but you are the one who have the experience. So what do you think about it?
There's somebody who said this. I forgot who said it, but they said the fastest way, if you want to be wealthy, don't save more, just double your income.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Great.
And essentially, the thought behind it is that, look, right, if you only have like 800 a month, like there's only so much that you can do with that. Like let's be realistic, right? Like, there's a basic floor that needs to be met. And going beyond that is extremely hard if you're right above the floor. So if that's you, you shouldn't be thinking about how to save. You should be thinking about how to make more money.
Sure.
Like, and then once you have more money, then you need to start thinking about how to be efficient with that money. But if you're barely at minimum wage or lower, I mean, there's no like saving tricks that's really gonna make a huge difference. Now, I will challenge you though. You can still save. I remember when I was working at IHOP, I was making like 400 a month. I was living at my mom's still. So I didn't have full on expenses. But even on that, I still managed to tithe 10% and save 10%.
Okay.
Right. And I remember back then, dude, life was so hard, man. Living on like 300 a month is brutal.
I can't imagine.
And I remember my treat.
That's just the
That's hard. That was hard. And I remember my treat is at the end of the month or something, I would like go to McDonald's and I would buy 2 McChickens for $1 each.
Wow.
And that was like my like celebration for making it to the end of the month.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And so like that's silly, right? But I had a little ritual, a system, and it worked even then when I had very little money. So you can do it. You really can with little money, but obviously it's a lot harder than when you make more, right? So
So how can people stay disciplined with their finances and with their money? Say for example, for what you do, since you also manage your finances and then you also have software business that you handle on the side, software projects. So how can people really incorporate both the expenses that they have and just stay disciplined with their finances and their money?
You stay disciplined by engineering around the weakness of the human will.
Okay.
So the whole reason why I have 3 bank accounts, now 6 with my wife, because
she has 3.
We have the same system as well.
Okay.
The whole reason we have 6 bank accounts, the whole reason we have all of these things is because we know that we're not that disciplined, we're not that consistent.
Okay.
So are you guys familiar with this? I thought there's a name for this term, but it's essentially when you take away the power of decision,
Okay.
and you put it on another entity, right? For example, there is these cookie jars.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have seen this. They were super viral, and they're like, they're a cookie jar. You put the cookies in it, and then there's a timer on the top, and you can set a timer. And once you set the timer, this jar will close itself, and you cannot open it at all until the timer goes up.
Okay.
If you check the battery, it won't. The timer will just pause. It won't stop.
Oh.
The only way to open this thing is to use a hammer to actually break the box, or to wait for the timer. And people use these things because what's magical is if you're working and you find yourself very distracted on your phone and like that, what I'll do, I have a cookie jar at home. Sometimes if I find I get really distracted, I'll take my phone, I'll put it in the cookie jar, I'll close it for 45 minutes. And the moment the cookie jar closes, my phone disappears from my mind, right? Because, but what essentially what I've done is by removing access, like Before it was a decision. I had to decide not to be tempted. I had to decide not to get on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. But now that it's in this box that I cannot open, there's no longer a decision for me to make.
Okay.
Right. And so now it's no longer reliant on me being disciplined. Because it's in this box that I can't touch. And so that principle is the principle I use in the finances. I don't want to rely on my discipline to not check my phone, because I know that can fail. But if I put my money in a cookie jar and I set a timer, that's it. I don't have to make a decision every day. It's like you only make the decision once. It's when you establish the system, not every day when you're trying to resist the temptation. So if you're trying to lose weight and you have a chocolate cake on your front table in the house every day, you can walk past it. Right? You walk past it the first day. I'm not touching that cake. You walk past it day 6. I'm not touching that cake. Day 13, you walk past it, but you look at it for a little bit.
I feel like it's
a little bit.
Day 25, you stare at it for a couple minutes, and then you leave. Right? But then, because it's there every day, you have to make the decision not to fall. But if you just throw away the cake, you only make the decision once at the beginning, and then you're freed of like the resisting of the temptation throughout the rest of the. So that's how you want to think about it. If you know, like, man, discipline is hard. I know I suck at discipline. That's why I create systems so I don't have to be disciplined.
There's another concept that Robert Kiyosaki mentions, and not only him but a lot of other businessmen. Delayed gratification.
Right.
So in regards to delayed gratification, what could you say to that, and how you can incorporate delaying the gratification you can get with purchasing power that you have with the funds you have, and then to be able to help manage your funds a little bit more, and just to help you to stay more disciplined with money that comes in.
That's something that's a hard question for me to answer, to be honest. Because that's something that comes easy to me.
Okay.
For me,
second nature.
It's I like money, and I don't like to spend it. No, you'd be surprised. My wife, she doesn't like money. She does not like money. She prefers Amazon boxes. But me, I prefer money. Like I don't like to not have my money and to give it away. I hate it. I don't like that. So for me, it's easy to not spend because I'm cheap. I'm one of the cheapest person. There's cheaper than me, but I'm relatively cheap. I don't like to spend money. So for me, it's not hard to not spend. For somebody like my wife, it's a little harder because she likes to spend money. Like, it's fun. She likes to order new things on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And so that's not a problem that I've struggled with. But being married and getting insight into how my wife's spending patterns have changed, something that's helped her is to kind of set up a reward system. Because for her, it was like she spent a lot of money Amazon ordering because it felt good and it was fun to buy stuff. And so what she did instead is, I guess she set up a different target. She was like, okay, instead of buying stuff online every week like that, I'm just gonna buy this like one big thing so that I don't do this little spending. Or I'm gonna set aside my money to buy this other thing that I really, really want. So instead of petty, or like, I don't know, it's an easy example to give in food, but say instead of going to McDonald's like twice a week and spending $10 each time, you can say, okay, make a reservation to like a steakhouse where you're gonna spend $100.
Wow.
And then, but you make that reservation like 2 months from now. And so now, like, you like that 10-20 you'd be spending in McDonald's every week, it's now like set aside because of that one steakhouse that you're going. So that's how you've like delayed your gratification, right? You train it that way. You train your way, you're delaying that way. You're like, okay, I'm gonna hold on, but then I know I'm hold on, it's gonna be really good. Like, I'm gonna have an amazing steak or an amazing dinner. And you kind of use a system like that, and over time you can stretch it to make the reward and the incentives better and better and better, so that you increase your discipline. So in the beginning, maybe 2 months is too hard for you or whatever. You can be like, okay, if I don't get McDonald's for this week alone, next week I'm gonna treat myself to this one thing. That's worth the same amount. So instead of spending $20 in McDonald's this week. I'm just not gonna do it. But then next week I'm gonna spend 40 on something.
Oh,
Like that gives you a little goal, a little target, and then a little reward right after it. Once you hit that, then you can stretch yourself a little bit and challenge yourself. Okay, I'm gonna go 2 weeks,
okay.
and then if I make it, then on that third week, I'm gonna spend $80 on something I really want.
Okay.
So now you see, you kind of have like a carrot in the sense that motivates you towards delaying your gratification.
Okay.
That's how you can train it. Yes.
I mean, that's so deep, because I remember it's something that from the book The Power of Habits. Like every habit that we do, it's because we want the gratification, the reward we get from that habit. We never do something because we want to do it. We do something
there's a reward behind
because we want the reward from that habit or that behavior that we're doing. I mean, I love that. So how are you really open to learning opportunities, or being getting to understand certain things that you didn't know before? For instance, like when you've been called by Taylor to come into this podcast, so what popped in your mind first? How did you perceive it? How did you get it as a human being, as a person?
Well, first of all, I was happy to hear from Tyler. I hadn't seen him in a couple years.
Yeah.
The last time I saw him in person, I remember, I think I went to his house.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I think your brothers were upstairs playing, and that was the last time I saw this man in the flesh. So it been years.
In the flesh.
So when I got the call or the text, first of all, I was just happy to hear that he's in town and hear from him. I was excited, and as regards to being in the podcast, well, I was excited because I knew I would get to have conversation with Taylor, who's a great friend of mine, and whoever is a friend of my friend is my friend, right? So it's like, I knew that the conversation would be interesting and that it would be fun. We would enjoy ourselves. So I was overall looking forward to it. I would say I had a positive outlook.
That's great. So I just wanted to have a bracket on that, because we've been just feeding. So let's go back to teaching again. What can you say to people that think for you to start saving or having certain money, you need to have that huge
saving account?
No, like that huge earning. For instance, somebody says, if I have $100, I don't see, with all my expenses, with all I have to do, I cannot save the money. I need to start saving when I have 1,000, for example, maybe. So what do you say to those people right now? Be like, this month I just make 500, and 500 is so little for me. I'm gonna wait next month if I make 1,000, or next time I will start saving. But for now, I don't think the money I have is enough for me to save. So what can you tell to these people right now?
I would say first of all, that's BS.
Oh my days.
I would say that you're lying to yourself in some way, that you're not recognizing the problem.
Okay.
Right? The problem is not that necessarily. The problem is not on the inflow, it's on the outflow.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And most of the time, when I dig deep in the finances of people who complain about their money, it's because of how they spend. Almost always.
Okay.
I have friends like friends that are engineers that make well above 6 figures, right?
Yeah.
Make great money. They're always stressed about money. Like, oh man, money's this, money's that. And I'm like, dude, like, I know your salary. Like, you should not be struggling.
That's right.
Like, where's your money going? And we sit down and we look at the money. Oh, dude is out here going on concerts every other week that he didn't plan for.
Okay.
Buying clothes, shoes, traveling, posting on the gram every Thursday that he's on a new trip. I'm like, well, duh. Like, of course you're gonna be stressed about money. You're spending all of it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's rarely an inflow problem. It's more often than not an outflow problem.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, oh, that's not enough, I would challenge you to look deeper into where you're spending money. Like most people, like they don't look at their bank transaction history. Like that's a fact, right?
Oh,
People they open the bank app, they only look at the number on the right, and they're like, why is this so low? Like, why? Click on that and start scrolling. You're gonna start realizing,
where
oh man,
going.
$23 at Whataburger, 40 at Forever 21. And you're gonna start seeing.
Sometimes I'm like,
That's true.
Your money leaves you, and it's not even. I have that issue. I look at my bank account and I'm like, oh wow, I only have $20 left for this week. Why? And I'll click on it. It's like, I got charged for this app. I forgot I canceled the subscription yesterday, right? Because they charged. I was looking at my transactions in my bank. I was like, okay, I have less money than I should. Why? And I'm starting to scroll and I'm looking, and I got charged for the subscription that I didn't know I had, and I went to cancel it. Do you know how long I was paying for it without using it? 13 months.
Wow.
13 months. Going every month. 10, $15 leaving my bank account, and I didn't realize. Because I wasn't looking at my transactions. So you have to, more often than not, if you feel like you don't have as much money as you should, go in your bank and actually look at your transactions. You'll see where your money went. You spend 10 here, you spend 12 here, you spend 10 here, 12 here, 20 here, and that adds up quickly. And then you realize the problem is that your money is leaving you faster than it's coming in.
That's really huge. I mean, that helps a lot, because I know so many people, right? So many people have that problem.
Yeah.
That delaying starting to save money. Why? Because they're making less.
Right.
No, they think they make less.
Yeah. Right.
So they be like, no, I have this little. So let's go from a part whereby somebody really need to start investing, right? You are more in software, in startups.
Right.
So how does that word work? And how can you start investing in those kind of, let's say just in general, right? Let's go to your own.
Yeah, because Verde has some unique, startup ideas as well. That he already started with other business people as well.
Sure.
So I'm definitely curious in that perspective.
Yeah.
So, first of all, if you want to invest in startups, the short answer is you can't really. You have to be an accredited investor. It's a private market, so not everyone can just invest money there. So I'd tell you, invest. The best proxy you have is investing in publicly traded tech companies. Right. Okay. Because they're the cloud providers. So invest in Google, Microsoft, Amazon. Because by owning shares of those three, you have shares of the entire cloud market, and that's kind of a proxy because that's where all software companies are built on. So if a software company does well, its cloud provider is also going to do well, and you being an owner of the share of that Google or AWS, whatever, you'll benefit from that tailwind, right? That's kind of the best you can get because it's a private market. Now to participate in a private market, like there's a few requirements. You have to be accredited, so that means you have to have a net worth either above 1 million or income above 300 or 400K a year. I'm not exactly sure what the requirements are, but you have to get those requirements, and once you meet those requirements, then you're able to make private investments in startups. Now the way that world works is that they play very much by the power law, where most startups that you invest in are going to fail. They're going to go to zero, but there's one or two that you're going to invest in that are going to become $10 billion companies, and they'll make up all of the entire money that you've lost.
That's a crazy concept because I've heard that as well. I mean, there's a certain percentage. I think it was like 80% of startups fail in the first year.
Oh, yeah, 80%
in the first year.
So
of business.
VC math is kind of crazy. So for example, in people who invest in startups as institutions, they're called VCs, for venture capitalists. That's what it stands for. And then the individuals who do it, they're called angel investors. And basically the way that it works out is you can take 100 startups and you can put 10,000 in 100. Okay, and out of that 100, maybe 80 are just going to fail. They're going to go to zero.
Okay.
20, they're going to become okay companies. They'll give you like a return on your money, like a 1x return or maybe a 2x return. But then you're going to have that one company.
Yeah.
And that one is going to give you like 50x, 100x, 3000x.
Okay.
And that's where you're going to really, really make the money. And so they kind of play the odds game, right? They know most of their investments are going to fail, but they're looking for that one or two that are going to really carry the whole, carry them the way through. So for example, $10,000 or $25,000 invested in the earliest stages of Uber would have become 300 million by the time they went public.
Wow.
Right. Okay. Or something like there's a guy, Gary Tan, I think he invested something like $1 million in Crunchbase first institutional round of funding. By the time Crunchbase went public, he made billions.
Okay.
Like instantly from he became a billionaire off of his investment in Crunchbase. So I think that's more than that's an insane return on your investment. So that's kind of like why people play that game.
So help our
investors,
help our audience understand this concept. Is it more important or more recommended to diversify all of your portfolio and have your eggs in not just in one basket, or just centralize yourself and focus on one basket and just do good in that one area of investing or just in general of work to succeed in that? Or should you just diversify and have multiple different things that you're doing so that you can have more chances of succeeding?
I think you should go deep in one area.
Yeah.
Because there's an investor that I really like, Paul Graham. He talks about this a lot. And he talks a lot about going deep, because he says, that there's the difference in outcome for somebody who's in the top 15th percentile and the top 5 percentile is immense.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you were to look at income, somebody in the top 15th percentile, they might make like, I don't know, maybe like 200K a year.
Yeah.
200, 250K a year. Somebody in the top 5, they're like 700-800.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, so the gap between being just better and then one of the best is huge.
It's huge, guys.
And so then, because the gap is so huge, there's a greater reward in trying to become one of the best in an area.
Okay.
Because you'll have a much bigger outcome than being average in 5 or 6.
Okay.
So the name of the game is really specialization. Become excellent, become the best at 1 or 2 things. Like, that's it. Don't go beyond that, because then when you go deep in this area, then you'll have the maximum payout potential.
That's great. I mean, this really is an amazing episode ever. I mean, I really love it. I really love it.
It's very intelligent.
I mean,
Thanks, man.
it's clever.
Yeah.
I just read a lot.
It's clever.
Well,
I mean,
in regards to reading, not to finish it.
I mean, it's really clever, and I really need to tell you that I really love this podcast to go ahead. But if you're still in town, we can program for another thing to come.
Definitely. If
but
he's available.
As far as we going to the end, I want to read this quote, and you tell me what you think. Your environment has a huge impact on your thoughts, behavior, and aspiration. So how do you think this can impact somebody? Do you think that for you to become well off and financially free, you need to surround yourself with like-minded people, or you think you can go there by yourself as an individual?
I believe it's more about the people you surround yourself with, because they influence you. As humans, we feed on each other's energy, thoughts, and patterns. And so if you have people around you that are highly motivated and dedicated,
Yeah.
you're gonna match their energy, right?
Yeah.
And if you're around people who have low standards, you're not gonna push yourself to become your best self
Yeah, sure.
because you're surrounded by complacency.
That's great, man. I love that. So, what is one thing that's a lot of people really consider that think like that is the greatest thing ever, but you think it's worthless and you don't need to feel like they have to put their focus on that?
I would say status symbols.
Okay.
Status symbols are a big one. The first month that I crossed, like, man, I was young. I think I was 21 when I crossed like 6 figures in income.
Yeah.
I was young. I didn't have nothing to spend my money on.
Yeah.
And like now suddenly I'm looking at this money. I was like, dude, what am I gonna do with this money? That's so much money. I've never had this much money before. This is different.
This is different.
And then I went and I bought a new car, and I bought a Lexus.
Yeah.
Loved my Lexus, dude. I love that car.
Yeah.
I'll never trash talk it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful car. I loved driving it, love owning it. But I bought the car because I liked the car, right?
Yeah.
It was not about other people per se.
Yeah.
I just found the car beautiful and I wanted it. But something happened in that, though, that I found out is that you get more attention, right? Because people would see me. I was like, who's this young guy driving this Lexus? Like, and I would get a lot of attention. People say, oh, I like your car. Like, oh, what do you do? And it became a thing. Like, it stood out. Like, people would notice me because of my car.
Sure.
Right. And
Right. Okay.
and it's, people notice me because of my car. And some people might like or you might want that, but that's a very empty pursuit. First of all, you shouldn't pursue that because that's endless. It doesn't satisfy. But more than anything, I don't know about you guys, but it made me uncomfortable.
Okay.
Right? Like, I didn't like the attention that it brought to me. Because it was not the kind of good attention, right? The kind of attention I would want to garner.
Yeah, sure.
So I eventually sold that car, and maybe one day in the future I'll buy a new car again. Who knows, right? But overall, that's something I've learned doesn't have that much value. Is buying things for the sake of being seen. It's not worth it. It's really not.
Great.
So Verde, you mentioned that's a good point you brought up. You mentioned you read books. What books would you recommend for the audience to just listen to or read, just to gain more knowledge on some of the experiences you've had?
So here are the top 3 books that were most life-changing for me that I've read. Number 1, the Bible. You got to get in the Word. I think that's key.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom to be extracted there. Number 2, most life-changing book I've read was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
Man.
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey. Yeah.
Great book.
Great.
Very mind out. Yeah, that was
They say
very, very powerful book. Number 2.
Yeah.
And number 3, I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People. These are the top 2 most influential book that I've ever got a held on, and that really changed my life. Right now I'm reading Your Next 5 Move by Patrick Bet-David.
Nice.
It's an excellent book if you're in business, talking about business strategy and problem solving. So that I highly recommend it. It's good.
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
It's good.
Awesome. And my 2 last question ever. We always ask this to every guest in the podcast. What is the best advice that you've ever heard, received, or given?
Oof, that's hard. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Okay.
Best advice ever.
Yeah, we've all had a lot of advice in our days.
Yeah,
I know.
But
what was
receiving the best?
Okay.
Oh man. I think I think one of the best advice I ever got was from my mom, actually. And it's funny that she said that.
Yeah.
But I didn't use it in the way she thought I would use it.
Okay.
But she told me how life is like a very tricky balance. And she said, like, you can be very close to the edge for a very long time and not fall. And you can think that the way you're living is fine because you haven't fallen off the edge.
Okay.
But she said all it takes is just one tug too strong, and your life is forever gone in the wrong direction.
Wow.
And that really, really stayed with me because I realized, because I guess at the time I was living recklessly. Like I was walking the edge and I was like, oh, this is fine because nothing bad has happened, but nothing bad has happened yet.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I learned a lot from one of the best pieces of advice. It really got me to rethink about how I'm spending, what am I doing? Like, am I taking undue risk?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that things could take a turn for the really, really ugly in this thing? And am I okay with that outcome?
Thank you. And the last one, just in 1 or 2 words, what's the worst advice that you've ever heard, received, or given?
What's the worst advice that
This one always gets everyone.
Everyone.
I think the worst advice I ever received was,
He's thinking about it. It's,
Man, just
it's destroying his brain already.
I think was to not start my first company.
Wow. Oh, wow. Amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us until right now. So we got to the end of our episode today. I think it has been a really pretty great one. We've learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot from Taylor here, from Verde himself. I mean, I really love it. And if you do, please support, share, leave your comment. What have you learned so far from this podcast? And if you have any question, just let us know. We'll be there. We have all the team that will be answering and supporting us. So from now, we love you and see you to the next episode. Thank you so much.